Okay, boys and girls, we're going to be rereading The Princess Carpet, which is an Iraqi folk tale. And remember, we read it yesterday. But today we're going to be talking about a different literary element. And let's recall what are literary elements. Now, literary elements are the pieces that make up a story. They're like the building blocks of a story. And all stories have them. They have characters. Those are the people and animals in a story. Who are the people in the story that we read yesterday? Who were those people? Do you remember? Who were those people? Olive?
The prince.
The prince. And his name was Prince Habib. Prince Habib. Yes.
The king.
The king. King Salim. Yes, who else?
The thieves.
The thieves. Very good. And so when we're looking at the characters or animals, because people are animals, because sometimes the stories we read have animals as the characters, we think about what do they say? What do they think? What do they do? What do the other characters think and say about them? Right? So we have the characters. Then, setting. The setting is where and when the story takes place. And it affects the plot because certain events happen in certain settings. And it affects the plot by creating its mood. Now that's what we're going to be concentrating on today. We're going to be talking a lot about the setting of the story. So we should always be thinking about the setting of the story. Now, one of my favorite books, or series of books, and I don't know how many of you have read them, would be the Harry Potter books. Who's ever read or heard of any of the Harry Potter books? Has anybody ever read them? Yes. Setting is very important in those books. So when you start to read them, you can pay a lot of attention to the setting of the books. They take place at various different, they take place at all sorts of different places. They take place at Hogwarts, which is Harry's school. They take place in a very special woods at Harry's school. They take place in Hogsmeade, which is the village by Harry's school. They take place in a house that belongs to Harry's godfather. I mean, there's all sorts of different places where the story takes place. Now we have the plot. Now the plot is where you have a conflict. And a conflict is the problem in the story. And then every story has the resolution where the problem is solved. And then we have events. Those are the things that happen in the story. Now, we are going to reread The Princess Carpet. And we're going to be talking about the characters, the plot, and the setting, because we're very interested in the setting of the story today. Okay, boys and girls, are you ready? I enjoyed that story. And you know what? One of the things that I really noticed about our story, I don't know if anybody else noticed this as well, is the beautiful illustrations. Did anyone notice the beautiful illustrations in our story?
Yeah.
Yeah, very beautifully illustrated. I enjoyed this story very much.
The Princess Carpet, an Iraqi folktale, retold by Jacqueline Green, illustrated by Katia Krenina.
Okay, now remember yesterday we were talking about the theme. Who remembers what the theme of this story was? Yes. Someday a skill could help you. That's right. A theme is different from the topic. The topic is just what happens in the story. A theme is the lesson you can learn from the story. So let's start with our story.
Prince Habib stopped weaving when his father entered the room. King Salim smiled at his son. "You have become a fine carpet weaver and have learned a great skill," said the king. "You may be a rich prince, But always remember that it is important to learn how to do something well. A skill might help you one day. Habib had heard his father's words a million times. The king thought it was very important to learn a skill. So Habib had learned how to make carpets when he was very young. It was hard work, but he liked to weave beautiful designs into the carpets.
Okay, now boys and girls, we are thinking about setting, the setting of a story. What details help you figure out that the action takes place in a palace? How do we know that this is taking place in a palace? Yes, Ivy?
Because he's like a prince and
Well, we know he's a prince. What else tells us? There might be a detail there on page, which is page 2, which is right there. What does it say that lets us know he is in a palace? Is there anything that gives us a tip-off that he's in a palace? Mikey?
he's a rich prince.
He's a prince, but how do we know he's in a palace? Does it say it in the text where we can kind of think that maybe he's in a palace? What do you think?
I think because he uses puppets, he's in a palace.
Yes, you think because he's a king, he's in a palace? Yes, I would think because he's a king, he's in a palace. And it says there, his father entered the room. So we know he's in a room, he's in a room, right? So we know he's entered into a room, and we know that kings probably live in some sort of a palace. So that gives us an idea that he is in a palace someplace. Very good. He's in a palace. So right now, the setting is where? The palace. That's where the story takes place.
May I go out and ride my horse now, father? Asked the prince. You have done as much work as 10 men today, said King Selim. You may ride, but do not go far from the palace. Prince Habib prepared his horse for the ride. If we ride fast, Pasha, we can go all the way to the mountains and still be back before dinner. The prince rode across the fields. Soon Habib reached the mountains, where there were tall trees all around him.
Okay. So now, how does the setting of the story change on this page? How does the setting change? Aleph?
He's in his palace and then he's outside riding his horse.
Yes, he was in the palace. Now he is outside riding his horse. And what do we see? What is around him? What is around him? It says it right here in the text. Yes. Mountains and trees. What kind of trees it says? Can you see? Probably not.
Yeah.
Tall trees. It says mountains and tall trees, right, Teddy?
Yeah.
It says mountains and tall trees. Very good. So first he's in the palace, then he's outside, surrounded by mountains and tall trees. So our setting has changed.
Suddenly, a gang of thieves surrounded the prince. One thief held the prince's horse, while another thief pulled the prince to the ground. Where did a small boy get such a fine horse? Asked one thief. You must work for a rich man. Prince Habib was afraid to tell the thieves that he was the son of King Selim. If we let him go, he might return and find our hiding place, said the leader with the black beard. Let's tie him up. He will be a tasty meal for the forest animals.
Oh, now boys and girls, there's something you should know. Now, quite often, when a setting changes like it did here, it often means that something is going to happen in the plot of the story, that something important could be happening. And so boys and girls, what has happened here? So an important event has happened. Our setting has changed. They were in the palace. Now he is outside in the mountains, surrounded by tall trees. What has happened to the prince? Jensen?
He got captured.
He has been The thieves have stopped him, right? The thieves have got him. They want him to be they're thinking about making him a tasty meal for the animals. That does not sound like a good fate for the prince, for the king's son.
Prince Habib was very afraid. He had to quickly think of a way to save his life. I may be a small boy, but I am a good carpet weaver, he told the thieves. I could make carpets for you to sell. The leader thought for a moment. So we should keep him alive, he decided. The thieves pushed Prince Habib along a path until they came to a large cave. The thieves tied the prince to a tree and gave him very little to eat for 3 days. Prince Habib worried that he would never see his father again. At last, the thieves brought a weaving loom and some bags of wool to the cave. They untied Habib and said, "If you want to save your life, you must show us what you can do."
Okay, so now where is Prince Habib now? Where's Prince Habib now? Logan?
By the thieves' cave.
By a cave, by the thieves' cave. Now, do you think that there's a lot of people around this cave? No, what leads you to believe that this is kind of in an isolated area? Olive?
Because they're thieves and they don't want to get caught.
Yeah, they don't want to get caught. So they're in an area, there's not a lot of people around, they're isolated. They're thieves, they want to hide out.
The prince worked very hard. All day and all night, he pulled wool through the loom to create a carpet with a beautiful design. After a few weeks, the carpet was finished. "This is the most beautiful carpet I have ever seen," the leader told the thieves. "We can either sell it in the market or sell it to a rich man. Neither one is right," said Habib. "If you take it to the palace and show it to the king, you will receive the best price for it." So the leader rode off with the carpet.
So Mikey, what does Habib do while he's in the cave?
He spends his time making the carpet.
And how long does it take him to do that?
A few weeks.
It takes him a few weeks to do that. And then now he's made the carpet, and what are the men going to do with the carpet? Ethan, what are the men going to do with the carpet? Are they going to put it down on the floor in the cave? What do you think? What are they going to do with that carpet? What did they say? They said, "This is the most beautiful carpet I have ever seen," the leader told the thieves. "We can either sell it in the market or sell it to a rich man." So what's their initial plan?
They're going to sell it to a rich man.
They're going to sell it, right, to a rich man. And then Habib says, "Neither one is right. If you take it to the palace and show it to the king, you will receive the best price for it." So now what are they going to do, Libby?
They're going to give the carpet to the king.
They're going to sell it to the king.
Many hours passed, and at last the leader returned. King Salim said that the carpet must be the work of the best carpet weaver in the land. The leader tossed a bag of gold coins to the thieves, who fought over the money. All of a sudden, King Salim rode up to the cave with his army. "Habib!" cried the king. "I have found you." When the thief came to the palace with the carpet, I noticed that the beautiful design was a map. I saw a large crown and a vine leading to a cave. When I saw a small crown near the cave, I knew that you had made the carpet. I called my army and followed the map to find you here.
Okay, so now, how is the prince's problem solved now? How is the prince's problem solved? Elisa, how's the prince's problem solved?
He made a carpet with a map.
He made a carpet with a map, so then what happened?
His father found him.
His father found him, because what was on the map?
A map.
What was on the map? What was on the carpet? A map, right? And what was on the map that led his father to him?
2 crowns.
2 crowns. And what did the crowns represent? What did the crowns represent? Kelsey?
The prince and the king.
The prince and the king. One was a big crown, and the big crown represented the king, and the small crown represented the prince. So those were representative of them. Very, very good. So we had some different settings in the story. The settings were very important. Could the thieves have hid Habib in a town? Would Habib been able to get help if he was in a hiding place in town? Would he have been able to be there for weeks and no one find him? Probably not. So the cave was very important, that it was in an isolated spot. No one could find him there. So here's what we're going to do. You have got a paper, you have got your reading graphic organizer on literary elements. Now, the first thing I want you to do where it says title is I want you to write the prince's carpet. And it says right up here, the prince's carpet. If you notice where it says the prince's, there's an apostrophe S because the carpet belongs to the prince. The prince's carpet. Let's write that. Let's write the prince's carpet. Here's what the book looks like. Okay, carpet, car and pet. The prince's carpet. Okay, now we're going to put our characters. Who are the characters in our story? Who's the characters? Yes.
The thieves.
The thieves. Who's our main character? Yes?
The prince.
The prince. Prince Habib. So let's put Prince Habib as our main character. Oh, am I gonna get it? Let me see if I can get us up there. So our characters are Prince Habib, the thieves, who's another character in our story? Who's another character in our story? Teddy?
The king.
King Salim. Okay, so those are our characters. Now, what is the settings of our story? We have several settings. What is our first setting of our story? Kelsey? The castle, or the palace. The palace. He lives in a palace. So the palace, so we're going to say the palace. Where else? Where was the next setting? After the palace, there was a place. Where did he go next?
In a forest?
Well, they called it the, what did they call it? Not as
The mountain.
the mountains. And then lastly, where were they? Libby? The cave. Okay. Now we have to figure out the problem. What is the problem? What is the problem in the story? What's the problem in the story? Ivy?
He rides too far and he gets caught by thieves.
Prince Habib rides too far and is taken by thieves. That's it. That sums it up. Okay. Prince Habib rides too far and is taken by thieves. Very nice. Okay, so how can we sum up the middle of the event? So what sentence, I think we could kind of say one, maybe two at the most sentences, what happens in the middle, yes,
He makes a map
on a carpet, right? He weaves a carpet with a map on it. He weaves a carpet with a map. With a map design, let's say. And so then what could we say is the resolution? How is the problem solved? Olive,
Prince Habib's dad,
the king,
the king, bought the map, bought the carpet on the map, bought the map on the carpet.
yes, the king bought the carpet and followed
And followed the map
to the cave, okay? The king bought the carpet the map to the cave. And what happened at the cave? What happened at the cave? Yes?
He found his son.
And found his son. Let's say and rescued. Rescued Prince Habib. And rescued Prince Habib. Very nice. So the setting is very important to the story because first they're in the palace, everything's okay in the palace. His dad tells him, if he goes riding, don't go far out. But does he listen to his father? No. He rides far out. He rides far out into the mountains. Far out into the mountains is where the thieves are. The thieves take him. They bring him to their cave, far out into the forest, far out into the mountains. Luckily, he is skilled and makes that carpet. So good job, boys and girls. So finish writing that.